So today we're looking at another list, and I think this one is a really interesting topic for a few reasons. One, this is a really subjective, a subjective topic, and because of this, I think it's really difficult to rank. Like, there's so many different things you can look at. So today we're looking at the 20 greatest role players in NBA history. This article is from Bleacher Report, and it's a little bit old too, but I thought this would be a really fun topic because you guys know all about my channel and my approach. I like to highlight, NBA history, things that are overlooked, things that are forgotten, put a spotlight on guys who don't get enough attention. So naturally, this list should be doing that. I'm also going to interject some of my guys as well, some guys that I think should be on the list. But I have an idea of some names that I expect to see on here. We'll see if I'm right. They have a couple qualifiers here. One of them, the player must have won at least one championship ring, which honestly, I don't know if I really agree with for the 20 greatest role players, but I get why you would do that. A player must have not been one of the three best players on a championship team he played for. For example, in the Bulls dynasties, the top three options were Jordan, Pippen, then Horace Grant. Yeah, that makes sense. I think that, any guy who's a star or borderline star, you should probably take off of this list. Let's go ahead and get into it. Please let me know in the comments section below if you agree with these choices and who you think should be in here instead if he isn't. So number 20, we got Jason Terry. Yeah, Jason Terry was big. I mean, people just bring him up for, basically owning LeBron James in the 2011 NBA Finals. That's the thing you hear people mention all the time. But I mean, Terry was also low-key one of the greatest three-point shooters in NBA history. He had the longevity. He got very high on the all-time list. And so, yeah, he was impactful, played for a lot of different organizations and, had impacts for them, whether it be, the Celtics and the Mavericks and, the Hawks and that sort of thing. But Dallas was obviously where he had his greatest impact and what he's most fondly remembered for. And so, yeah, when it comes to Jason, he certainly caused a lot of Miami Heat players to lose some sleep. That's why today's video is brought to you by Bear Mattress. Thanks to Bear Mattress for sponsoring this video. Head over to bearmattress.com/Arnett and use my code Arnett to get 40% off a new mattress. As new parents, we've come to learn just how imperative good sleep actually is. That's where Bear Mattress comes in. Bear is a premium, fiberglass-free mattress designed to upgrade your sleep quality. It's conveniently shipped to your door for free within the US, which is always nice for people like us who are busy parents. What's awesome about Bear is that they have an in-depth quiz that you take online to ensure you get matched with your perfect fit. Just follow the prompts and you can tailor your needs to fit your life and sleep preferences. But because Bear mattresses have a limited lifetime warranty, they offer a 120-night sleep trial, so you can get more than 3 months to make sure that you love it. We went for a firm mattress and it drastically improved our sleep. Hunched over a computer, chasing around a toddler, our backs have been through a lot. Relaxing in the evening after bedtime on a mattress that supports our tired bodies has been a game changer as parents. But don't just take our words for it. In 2024, Bear ran a survey on over 300 of their recent customers, where 82% saw an improvement in their sleep quality on their new mattress. Additionally, something that is very important to my family is Bear's commitment to ensuring no harmful chemicals are used in their construction, nor do Bear's mattresses contain fiberglass, which can be detrimental to your health. If you're looking to upgrade your sleep, head to bearmattress.com/Arnett and use my code Arnett to get 40% off your Bear mattress. This is higher than what is being offered on site, so check them out while you can. All right, let's get back to it. Number 19, we got Pat Riley. That is an interesting choice, but I like this choice for Riley because usually we don't see a lot of guys in the 70s get love from Bleacher Report. And Pat Riley is obviously most known for, his executive career, his coaching career. And so, yeah, as a role player, he won the NBA championship in 1972 with the Los Angeles Lakers, played with great players like Wes Chamberlain, Gil Goodrich, Jim McMillan. And yeah, I mean, the only problem I have with this list is I wish they would explain more, like why they made this choice. They kind of just give you a name, write a little blip about it. And so I like the choice of Pat Riley, but there's a lot more that could be said about him. So I'm disappointed that they don't delve into a little bit more. Number 18, Kendrick Perkins. Oh, I don't know about this one. They're bringing up Perkins specifically for his impact for the Celtics. I feel like Perkins, he goes back and forth on the pendulum between being overrated and underrated. Don't get me wrong. For that Celtics team between 2008 and 2010, when they were going to the finals, he had a strong impact. He was a great post defender. He was a great enforcer, intimidator. He was just really solid for basically their defensive identity. And when he went down in the 2010 NBA Finals, Pau Gasol and the Los Angeles Lakers, and even Kobe Bryant, who ended up getting a playoff high in rebounds, they took advantage of Kendrick Perkins' absence. So a lot of Celtics fans like to bring that up, and they do believe that they would have won the championship in 2010 over the Lakers had Perkins been healthy. And so if you hear Perkins talk about himself, he's got the Paul Pierce condition where he tends to overrate himself a little bit. But no, the guy was certainly impactful for the team that was regularly the year in and year out for probably a 4-year stretch, the best or top 3 best defensive team in the league. And so he was solid, but top 20, I don't know about that. Number 17, Bill Cartwright. One thing that people never mention about Bill Cartwright, center for the Chicago Bulls for their first three-peat, is, years before he had been on the Chicago Bulls, he was actually an all-star in the NBA. And so the Bulls kind of got him later on in his career when he didn't have the same athleticism and, just wasn't as solid overall. But it's funny because this is the part, obviously, he's known more for. And he's never really mentioned or given much credit, but, he really held it down. He was traded to the Bulls for Charles Oakley. And, Charles Oakley was Michael Jordan's friend. But MJ properly recognized that as a move necessary for winning, and they did. And really had a funky shot, with his free throw shot and everything. But he had to compete against, right here they mentioned, Patrick Ewing, Brad Daugherty, Bill Laimbeer, and so this guy was huge for that team. He didn't last long enough to be impactful, in their second three-peat. They had to ship him out and then bring in Luke Longley. But Cartwright was definitely underrated. Number 16, Bruce Bowen. Bowen was amazing. I would have Bowen way ahead of, these other guys, for sure. Bruce Bowen had this weird condition where, several guys had this in the NBA, where they're much better three-point shooters than free throw shooters. He literally had one season in the NBA where he was more efficient from the three-point line than from the free throw line. So, Bruce was kind of an interesting player in his own right, but incredible wing defender. He was brought in as the guy to stop Kobe Bryant, because if you ask the San Antonio Spurs team, and any honest San Antonio Spurs fan, the Spurs had more issues in the early 2000s with Kobe Bryant in the playoffs, more so than Shaquille O'Neal. They had the bigs to go at Shaq, but for a while, they didn't have the defenders to handle Kobe. So they bring in Bruce Bowen. He does a really solid job of that. Tim Duncan is always celebrated as the best defender on that San Antonio Spurs team, but it was Bruce Bowen from 2005 to 2007 who was the runner-up for the DPOY award year after year after year. This guy, he held down the perimeter while Tim Duncan held down the interior. But Bowen was solid, and so really the perfect 3-and-D type of player. Some people consider him a dirty player. Of course, I'm a Lakers fan and a Kobe fan, so what do you think I'm going to think? But, if you talk about all-time great role players, I kind of think 16's too low. Defensive Player of the Year candidate, 3-and-D candidate, dude was solid. Number 15, Casey Jones, point guard of the Boston Celtics, and just look at how many championships he won alongside of Bill Russell, Bob Cousy. Guys like these are tough because I love giving them their respect, but the amount of available footage of Casey Jones doing his thing, the amount of people at this point who saw Casey Jones having his impact for the Celtics, there's not many of them, you know? And so, although I love and appreciate the respect, I'm not going to personally act like this was something I experienced, you know, firsthand, you know? I remember Casey Jones more specifically as being the head coach of the Boston Celtics dynasty in the 1980s. But from an impact standpoint, from an accolade standpoint, getting his recognition for the greatest dynasty in NBA history, yeah, his placement makes sense for sure. Bill Bradley, one guy that never gets talked about in the modern NBA. Shooting guard / small forward for the New York Knicks, even ended up becoming a politician and I believe ran for president at one point. But yeah, with the Knicks, won the championship in 1970 and 1973. Lengthy player, quality defender, obviously played with some fantastic Hall of Famers. And so, yeah, this guy's a Hall of Famer, I believe, as well. And so, yeah, definitely respect Bill Bradley getting some recognition here, especially because this New York Knicks team usually isn't celebrated enough. Like, they had a rivalry with the Los Angeles Lakers. And so, yeah, no problems there. Steve Kerr for the Chicago Bulls and the Spurs. Yeah, I mean, one of the greatest three-point shooters and free throw shooters in the history of the NBA. Michael Jordan loved guys like Steve Kerr. Before there was Steve Kerr, there was John Paxson. And so that was a godsend to MJ to give him Steve Kerr after Paxson. It was like kind of a natural passing of the torch in that way. And you guys all know about the famous assists in the NBA Finals where Jordan gives it up to Kerr and he hits that clutch game winner over the Utah Jazz. And so, yeah, Steve didn't offer a ton of things outside of his solid shooting. He could occasionally make a play for himself. He can occasionally make a quality steal and all that. But I mean, you know, they talk about spacing more in the modern era than anything else. But even then, spacing was really important. And so Steve, yeah, I would not have Steve Kerr ahead of, like, say, Bruce Bowen. That is one aspect where I definitely disagree. I feel like this gets the Jordan, you know, Bulls dynasty boost because, you know, imagine, you know, Steve Kerr also being a defensive player of the year candidate. Well, that's what Bruce Bowen was, you know, so for that reason, I feel like Bowen has more to offer. But yeah, I don't hate this. Ron Harper from the Chicago Bulls. I imagine we're going to be seeing a lot of the Bulls dynasty on here. I mean, what have we already seen? We've already seen Cartwright. We've already seen Steve Kerr. Now we're seeing Ron Harper. And, you know, the funny thing about Ron Harper is he played with the Cleveland Cavaliers and the Los Angeles Clippers before joining the Chicago Bulls. Big 6'6" guard. He was a guy who was, obviously he never had like Michael Jordan type hype, but he was a guy who could potentially be seen as a rival to Michael Jordan because he had crazy athleticism, participated in a dunk contest, you know, could score 20 points per game early in his career. And he never quite became like a leading scorer candidate, you know, like a guy who was, you know, leading a franchise and he wasn't putting up Dominique and Michael Jordan numbers, but he was still pretty dang solid. Then he goes to the Chicago Bulls in the late 1990s and he takes a step back and he sacrifices a lot of his game offensively. But one thing that he's not appreciated for enough, and I love the fact that they bring it up here, is he was a fantastic large defender on the perimeter. He was a 6'6" point guard. And, you know, that's part of what makes the 95 to 96 Bulls so incredible is, yes, they had Michael Jordan. Yes, they had Scottie Pippen. And yes, they had Dennis Rodman. The only time in NBA history where three guys out of the starting five all made first team all defense. That was the 95 to 96 Bulls. And then they also had Ron Harper, which didn't make an all defense team, but he was borderline all defender. Like, he was a great defensive player as well. So you want to talk about just like a stupid good perimeter defense. And Harper had an impact on that. Also, I do remember him on the Lakers in the early 2000s, and he had, you know, occasionally he'd make a big three for us, but it wasn't anything like his impact for the Bulls. That was definitely way more important. Yeah, see, they're getting a little bit spammy here with the Bulls dynasty. Now they got Toni Kukoc. Kukoc, even by modern standards, is kind of like a role player's unicorn. 6'10 player. a 6'10" small forward. He could shoot, he could handle the basketball, was great off the bench, and he was clutch as hell. There's a reason why Phil Jackson wanted to give the final shots to Toni Kukoc more often than Scottie Pippen, because Kukoc was great at making a play for himself. He had the size and the length to shoot over long defenders. Like, he was just great in the closing seconds. And so, he had a lot of success for the Bulls dynasty, but, things got really rough after the team broke up, and then, Kukoc wasn't allowed to shine as much. They just didn't have as much success. But yeah, would I have him 11? Would I have him over all these other guys? Again, Bruce Bowen for me is top 10, so he's ahead of all of these players. Of the Bulls players mentioned so far, I'm okay with Kukoc being the highest. I am. Just his versatility, his scoring ability, his clutch ability, could have been a starter and having a massive impact, but the Bulls had such fantastic depth that they could bring him off the bench. And so, yeah, I don't have a problem with that one. Ooh, AC Green. Interesting pick to be in the top 10. So AC Green was solid. They have him for his championships with the Showtime Lakers in 87 and 88. In 2000, he was kind of just like that. I'm trying to think of a name to bring up, but like a James Jones, or like a guy who's there just in the twilight of his career to kind of be like a good, like basically what Andre Iguodala was in the later parts of his career, where, he's not really having an impact on the court, but he's just good for the locker room. That's the guy AC Green was at that point in his career. But in 87 and 88, this guy could run the fast break. This guy could get rebounds. He was scrappy. And man, if the best ability is availability, that's AC Green. He was the NBA's Iron Man of the time. Right here, they talk about his consecutive game streak and basically 13 straight years without missing a basketball game. I mean, this guy is basically mythical by the standards of this load managing modern NBA era. So yeah, AC Green was incredible. The one of the complaints I'm having with this list so far is like, it's a little bit too basic where we're just looking at like Lakers and Bulls. I understand they have the greatest dynasties, but that's why like I have a little bit of a problem of, putting a championship qualifier here, because there are definitely some role players that I think could be better than these guys, but because they played with Magic, Kareem, and James Worthy simultaneously, of course they're going to have the most championship success. So not really the most fair comparisons, but Lamar Odom, solid. I think Lamar Odom could be underrated or overrated depending on how you describe him. And so the way I describe that is this. When Lamar Odom was brought in from the Miami Heat to the Los Angeles Lakers, they wanted him to be Kobe Bryant's Scottie Pippen, and he was just never gonna do that. He was solid, but he wasn't that solid. Could he shoot the three-pointer? Yeah, but he was a little bit streaky. I liked him more as a lengthy rim attacker. He was a pretty good finisher around the rim, although sometimes he would be out of control, and I remember being frustrated to no end because he got a lot of charges back in his days with Kobe. But after we kind of accepted that he's not going to be a Scottie Pippen role player, we moved him to the sixth-man position. And he absolutely killed it in that position, was great for the second unit. He maturely embraced that and helped the Lakers win the championship in 2009 and 2010. And then occasionally, if one of these guys got hurt, like if Pau Gasol missed some time, if Andrew Bynum missed some time, which he missed some time quite frequently, we could plug this guy into the starting lineup and he could step it up and put up more stats and, become more of a scorer and assert himself. And so, great lengthy player, just love Lamar Odom. And top 10, he'd be borderline top 10 for me. I think number 9's probably too much, but I do love Lamar. If you've been following my channel for a while, you know I absolutely hate this guy. Danny Ainge of the Boston Celtics. To be fair, I hated him because he was annoying, he was a whiner, he was scrappy defensively. He played with hustle and heart. He would flop a lot, but he was also a pretty good three-point shooter for that era. I mean, he was just like an in-your-face, like trash talker, didn't really back down from anyone. And so, when I went back and watched all those VHS tapes between the Lakers and Celtics rivalry, I hated Danny Ainge. But he's the kind of guy where if he's on your team, you're probably going to love him, to be honest. So he was part of the championship Celtics in 1984 and in 1986. Obviously played with a bunch of Hall of Famers, was often starting for these great teams. And so, yeah, I mean, if Dennis Johnson doesn't count as one of the top 3 players, because if you're looking at the top 3 players on the Dynasty Celtics, you're probably looking at Bird, Parrish, or McHale. So technically, Dennis Johnson should count. And if Johnson isn't on this list based on that, that's kind of a travesty. Dennis Johnson was an NBA All-Defender. He should be well ahead of Danny Ainge. So we'll see how the list finishes out. But yeah, Ainge was a problem too, and definitely had an impact on many games. Was involved in many scuffles as well. Frank Ramsey, another Boston Celtic, obviously going way back, NBA championships. This guy is kind of the pioneer of flopping. He was both praised and criticized for it back in the 50s and 60s because some people just thought it was gimmicky, that he was cheating the game, that he was making a joke about the game. And then other people saw it as taking the extra step to win at all cost. And so kind of like how we view flopping today, to be completely honest. So Frank Ramsey, great player, had a significant impact on these teams. Obviously, he played with plenty of talent as well. And seeing that there was no, free agency at the time, this team was allowed to be stacked and stick together. And so I don't think I have Frank Ramsey quite top 10 because I think there's so many players here that you could give credit to. And even some of these players mentioned here on this list, you could probably rank higher than Ramsey. But yeah, he definitely had a major impact on the game's history. Bobby Jones. Yeah, this guy is 6 is probably a good spot, but he has top 5 potential. Bobby Jones was known as the Secretary of Defense. Before LeBron James was making chase down blocks cool, this guy was doing it all the time. Throughout his career, he was back and forth between a solid 6-man and a great starter. And tall, lengthy, small forward / power forward. And obviously won the championship with one of the greatest teams in NBA history, the 1983 Philadelphia 76ers, who only won one game who only lost one game in those NBA playoffs, swept the Lakers in the NBA Finals. And so I think he has like eight all-defense teams. So Bobby Jones definitely deserves to be on this list. You could argue top 5 for sure. Michael Cooper, yeah, look at that. Look at that versatility too. Point guard, small shooting guard, small forward. As a 6'7" wing player, Michael Cooper could defend just about anybody. He would guard the elite point guards, the elite shooting guards like Michael Jordan, or the elite small forwards like Larry Bird. Coop would guard any of them. And he was kind of the ultimate 3-and-D type of player. And so great three-point shooter in the 1980s. I think he won like 8 all-defense teams for the Lakers, and he definitely was the Defensive Player of the Year for the championship team in 1987. And that was while coming off the bench, too. And freakishly athletic, too. They had a play called the Koopa Loop, where whenever Magic Johnson would throw the alley-oop to Michael Cooper, they called it the Koopa Loop. And set the NBA Finals record for most threes made in a final series. Obviously, that has been broke many times since then with the inflation of three-point shots. But it kind of gives you an idea of who this guy was. That was the guy coming off the bench. Defensive Player of the Year, record breaker for three-point shooters, freakishly athletic. Yeah, this dude was nuts. And so he doesn't get enough praise for the impact he had for the Showtime Lakers. Not at all. Don Nelson, forward for the Boston Celtics. Nelson, he's kind of like K.C. Jones for me, where, his impact and his play was so long ago that to act like I have this hands-on experience, like where I just saw him play a ton. I know his impact. I know his play. I know of him more as a coach, though. Don Nelson being the coach of, several different teams, whether it be the Dallas Mavericks or especially the Golden State Warriors when they were the Run TMC Warriors. And Don Nelson was kind of like Mike D'Antoni before Mike D'Antoni as a coach. This guy just loved offense. Double the offense, little defense. That was Don Nelson. But yeah, as a player, definitely had a solid impact. But again, I have a hard time ranking guys as high with so limited footage and with such little hands-on experience, watching him play. And if you're going to rank him this high, again, I'd like more to hear your argument. There's some stuff, hit some crucial shots in the 1969 playoffs and led the league in field goal percentage. That's pretty solid. There was some epic final series where Don Nelson was sometimes the go-to guy because obviously Bill Russell wasn't, the greatest scorer in his era, so he had to lean upon other guys like Sam Jones, John Havlicek, and Don Nelson. And then John Havlicek. Ooh, I don't know though. Okay. I gotta maybe criticize this one. John Havlicek's too good, man. He's too good. You can't have him number 3 as a role player based on their criteria because Bill Russell, Dave Cowens and Bill Russell not really overlapping much, but let's say Dave Cowens and John Havlicek, when they were on the team, they were the top 2 players. And so he's definitely in the top 3 players almost every time he's on a team. There were not many seasons where John Havlicek was not a top 3 player on the Boston Celtics. But in the prime of his career was a 28 points per game scorer, averaging around 8 rebounds, 7 assists. This guy was a triple-double threat in the 60s and 70s where triple-doubles were not quite as common. Clutch performer as well. But again, I think this guy's too much of a star. 8 NBA championships. He was 8-0 in the NBA finals and was often their leading scorer. So no, this guy's too good. I don't think he should be on the list. Not because he isn't great, but really because he's too great. I would not describe him as a role player. He's a star. Number 2, Derek Fisher, baby. I love me some Derek Fisher. If you didn't watch Fisher play for the Lakers in the 2000s and the early 2010s, it's really hard to understand just how impactful he was. But man, this guy was so clutch for us. And it wasn't just with his 3-point shooting, which he was great at. But Fisher knew how to be in the right place at the right time. Would make a key lob pass. He was so great at taking a charge just when we needed it. There were times where it felt like we were going to lose a playoff game, and then Derek Fisher would do the right thing and totally swing the momentum. And so I love D-Fish. Obviously, you guys know his clutch moments. He had the .3 shot over the Spurs. What was it, .3 or .4, where he barely got it off to defeat the San Antonio Spurs in the 2004 playoffs. Then he had the clutch 3-pointer to defeat the Orlando Magic in the NBA Finals in 2009. And then what people almost never mention is, remember in 2001 where the Lakers went 15-1? Kobe and Shaq are both averaging 30 points throughout the playoffs, so they're ridiculous, right? But the guy who never gets enough credit for the role he played was Derek Fisher, who throughout the entirety of the 2001 playoffs was shooting about 52% from the 3-point line. This guy was literally making them more often than he was missing them. And so that was just devastating to opposing teams. You got to deal with Kobe and Shaq, and then whenever they kick it out to the perimeter, he's making 3-pointers better than half of the time throughout the entirety of the playoffs. No wonder why they went 15-1. And so, yeah, he doesn't get enough credit for that. And so, yeah, and I'm not surprised by this one. Greatest role player in NBA history. That's what people say. I don't even know if I agree with it, to be honest, and I'll explain that to a certain extent. But I get it from a winning perspective, from a right place at the right time. Rockets Robert Horry was different. On the Rockets, he was putting up really, really solid numbers, was one of their top leading scorers. By the time he got to the Lakers, he did go to the Suns first before that. Then he threw a towel at Danny Ainge's face and then got traded from the team. But then he ends up in the Lakers, and then he ends up on the Spurs. But how many clutch shots did he make for this team, and then for this team, and then for this team? We could be here forever if you want me to list them all off. A decent defensive player. He was also lengthy and athletic, so sometimes he'd drive down the lane and get like a big dunk that would just, really inject some life into the crowd. And so yeah, Robert Horry was good for that too. But again, like, there is no way you will ever convince me, if you're going to put John Havlicek on the list, that Robert Horry is better than John Havlicek. Like, yeah, maybe if you're only talking about the final 3 seconds and you need an open 3-point shot, yeah, I'd rather have Robert Horry shooting that shot. But if you're talking about a full 48 minutes, I'm going to take the guy who's averaging nearly a 30-point triple-double. Not quite that much, but like 28, 8, and 7, while winning 8 championships while being the guy. And so, but yeah, again, he shouldn't be on this list because I don't think he technically qualifies. And then if you compare a guy like Robert Horry to, say, Bruce Bowen, Defensive Player of the Year candidate, even Michael Cooper, like, I would have a hard time, picking Robert Horry over Michael Cooper. Michael Cooper's way more athletic. Considering their eras, Michael Cooper was the better 3-point shooter. And Michael Cooper is definitely, by far, it's not even close, a much greater defensive player. So I don't know, like, I love Robert Horry, but I feel like there's some, like, did he take advantage of his clutch moments? Yeah, to the ultimate extent. But I do feel like he gets, almost too much credit because of pure convenience. Like, again, he was with Hakeem Olajuwon when he was the best center in the NBA. Then he was with Shaq and Kobe when their peaks, not totally their peaks, Kobe was still young, but close to their peaks, And then the San Antonio Spurs during the Tim Duncan, Manu Ginobili, and Tony Parker dominance, like, of course he's going to have some success, but he made the most of those opportunities with those clutch shots. But as far as like overall skill set and the amount of things that he brings to the team, there's guys on this list who bring way more than he does. Like, Bobby Jones is one of the greatest defensive players in the history of the game. I can put Bobby Jones in the game and know he's going to lock down a superstar. I don't have that kind of assurance with Robert Horry. So it's tough. There's a lot of different ways to rank this list. Get John Havlicek off here. If you got Havlicek on here, like, what are you going to put, like, Dwayne Wade on here? Like, when he was a role player, quote, role player to LeBron James, having Havlicek on here is silly. So, but yeah, let me know what you guys think. There's so many names that could be brought up. Honestly, as I'm talking into this mic live right now, there's too many role players for me to just think of. So check out the pinned comment if you want to see more role players that I've had more time to think about. I'll definitely put those in the pinned comment. But anyway, I appreciate you guys all watching this video. Please let me know who should be here instead. Thanks for watching as always. Make sure to like and subscribe for more basketball content, and I'll see you guys in the next video.